Hello, thank you once again. We are going to continue with our Docker tutorial. What we are going to do here is I'm going to introduce you to more Docker commands, especially the commands that you could use to troubleshoot Docker when there is an issue. Let's say you deploy your application using Docker and there is an issue. You want to just check some basic stuff to know what's going on. Some of the commands I'm going to introduce to you now are going to be helpful. Uh, First of all, let's check our images. We've got 3 images here, and we can check our containers. There is no running container. No running container. Let me try this again. Yeah, so the containers I got here, there is no running container basically. What we are going to do before we proceed is to run a container. Let me clear the screen. So let's say, first of all, let me check this. The container we are going to run a container off of this Nginx image. That's what we are going to do. So in order to do that, I'm going to show you a different way of running a container. Let me finish typing this. I'm going to, let me say my Nginx, and we're going to map it. So this is a different way of creating a container. Let me 80, and the image we are going to create our container off of is Nginx. We can select test. Let's see what happens. So from this, we are going to, you see, so we now have our container as you're looking at it now. So let's issue this command again. So that's the container that we just created. As you can see, that's the container ID, which is the same as this. You see? So this ID you are looking here is the same as this, just that it was cut in short here in order to make it easier to check or to use. So I'm going to explain to you what we did here. So this command that we issued here, so basically what this does is that it runs a container out of the image that we had, which is Nginx. So it runs the container. Then this D uh, is like a detach. That's what it basically means. So what it means is that the container would run in the background. Without this D, what happens is that when you create the container, it disappears. But this will keep the container running in the background. Then with this flag here, we are giving it a name, my Nginx. That's what this means. Also, we have -p here, which is port. So basically what this is we are mapping the port. This port number, port 80, is the port number that is the container port number. So the 8080 is the port number of the host where the container is running. So what we are doing here is that we are mapping the container's port number 80 to the host machine's port number 8080, so that when you want to access what you launch on this container on your host, you can use this port 8080, which belongs to the host, to connect to port 80, which belongs to the container. That's what this command does. Now we have our container, which is my Nginx. Let me clear the screen again. The next thing we are going to do is I'm going to show you the command that you could use to check logs of your Docker machine. So the first one we are going to use is Docker logs, then the container name. If you remember, we named it my Nginx. With this command, you can view logs of the Docker container. You see? So in future lessons, we are going to study more about the contents we are looking at here. So here you can see these logs. Let's try something. Just observe how short these logs are, right? Just observe how short the logs are. So let's try something. Let us stop the Docker, my Nginx. We stop the Docker. Let's start it again. The Docker has been restarted. Now let's check our logs again. So when you look at this log, you are going to observe what just happened. So as you can see, that was after we restarted, we stopped the container and restarted the container. We issued this logs command again. If you remember, I asked you to look at how later the logs were. Now, after stopping and starting the container again, look at all the logs. So from here, you can actually see what went wrong, or what happened with your container. As you can see, so it's shutting down here after we issue the stop command. It's exiting, it's shutting down gracefully. You see. So after that, it restarted again. You see, so from this log, you can basically see what happened with your container if something is not working the way they should. So this is like your starting point. Also, sometimes you don't want to see all of these logs. You just want to see some parts of it. Now you've got some commands for that. Let's say Docker logs. We can say --tail. Let's say we want to see only the 10 lines of the log, my Nginx. You see, instead of all the logs we saw earlier, now we can see only 10 lines of logs. You see, if you wanted, if you wanted to see like 20 lines of logs, now you can see even more lines than what you saw earlier. Another command that we are going to try is the Docker Exec command. With this Docker Exec command, you can actually work into the container and see what's going on. Or rather, you can just log into the container itself and just use it as you would use a normal Unix or Linux machine. So for instance, if you want to see what the container contains, you can use the command docker exec interactive, and then the container name or the container ID. In this case, it's my Nginx. Then you can issue the then bash. You see the prompt has changed. The prompt has changed. So what we can do, let's see what commands we can use here. As you can see, we are actually inside of that container now. So if you look at it, it's just the same prompt that you would get on a Linux machine. So now we can actually do the same thing as in Linux here. For example, let's see some contents of this container. You see? So you can basically do a whole lot of things here as you would on a Linux machine. So now after you are done with your whatever it is you're trying to do, you can exit just like a Linux machine. Now we are back, right? There are so many other commands we could use here. For instance, if you wanted to see the IP address of your container, You could use this command, or rather the port number. You could use this command. If you remember, when we run our container, we set up a port number. So with this, you can actually view the port number of this container. So you remember the container is my Nginx. If you remember, this was the port 80, which we mapped to port 8080. Also, you could also find the IP address of this container. IP address. That's the IP address of this container. You could also check a whole lot of things here. For instance, network. You see? So with this, you can view the information about the network. That's the gateway. And that's again the IP address of the container, which is the same as what we got earlier. So there are whole things you can do here when you launch your container. There are so many commands. As time goes on, I'm going to introduce more commands that we could use and how we could use them to troubleshoot our application issue. I hope this tutorial has been helpful. If so, can I ask you to please subscribe to my channel, to like and to share. Thank you.